living like an old person, but hey, that's temporary.
Which one,
Thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate your attendance. This is our last community meeting of 2019. December 7th, the first Saturday in December, we have the Christmas parade that we sponsor, and that serves as our December community meeting. So we hope y'all can all come out to the Christmas parade, and that is organized and put on by Brenda and Eddie Payne are our volunteers. They organize the parade and graciously donate the trophies each year. So please contact Brenda. And does everyone have a copy of our November newsletter? Her contact info is on the sidebar. So if you want to have a parade entry or you have any questions about the details of the parade, please contact Brenda. I'm Mary Wilkerson, MBRA president, and we want to make a number of announcements. We're coming up on a festive holiday season, and our first one is going to be the Small Business Saturday Sidewalk Stroll, and that is for the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and this year is going to be on November 30th, so it's going to be kind of late. But it's a great opportunity for the community to come together, to get to know businesses, to get special deals, shop local, shop Marshall. You can avoid the mall madness and see the special deals that the businesses are going to have for you on that day. We also have, if you have purchases or receipts from 3 different businesses, member businesses on that day, then you are entered in the drawing. So it's from 11 a.m. on Saturday to 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. And you can go into, like, for example, Nick's Deli, Big Dog Pots, Gentle Harvest, Joe DeLisi's Pizza, we've got the Busterant, Johnny Monarchs, Joan of Art, all our various member businesses. If you have receipts from 3 of them, you're entered into the drawing. It's from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Just visit 3 different businesses, and we'll have a little treasure map for you to pick up. You pick that up to start your hunt. You pick it up from Nick's Deli at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and then you have a lot of fun with it. So bring it back. We'll do the drawing. Last year, I think there was a nice gift certificate from Field and Main that someone won, and then we had a couple of other very nice gift certificates too. Your chances are pretty good to win because Marshall's not a booming metropolis at this point. So we hope you come out. Also, we have our Make Marshall Merry decorating contest, and we hope that you can do that. If you're on Main Street, we hope you can decorate prior to Small Business Saturday because that just makes a nice presentation. But we will announce the winners at the Christmas parade on December 7th. So we encourage you to participate in the Christmas parade. We encourage you, if you have a Marshall Main Street business, if you're along Main Street somewhere, we just ask you to make Marshall merry. And we give out awards. We give out 3 awards for that each year. So. Mary Lee was not able to come. She is away with an official meeting with Holder, but she says there's really not much for her to talk about, and so we will continue on with our announcements in her stead. We also want to let you know about the Ruritan Club. Jan Sickle was not able to be here to talk about the Ruritan Club tonight. He had a funeral to go to, but we hope to have them again in the future, perhaps in January. They have a very nice event hall, and it's near the Windy Hill townhouses. So we encourage you to take a look at that facility and really see what you can do with that, because it's really very nice. They have very nice setup, very nice rental policy, and it's local. Also, very big news, you may have seen, we've gotten our 501c4 tax exempt status back. That was something that was a shock. When I became president in January of 2018, I discovered that the group had lost its tax exempt status that it had originally gotten in 2005. So working with our tax preparer, the man who helped us get the tax exempt status in the beginning in 2004, 2005, we found out everything from the IRS that was needed. And what was needed was all the financial data, all the tax returns for 14 years. And that fell on yours truly. So it's been a busy year, going through all the boxes, all the bank statements, et cetera, to compile that data that our tax preparer needed to do 14 years of tax returns for the MBRA. That he did submit that to the IRS, and the great news is with all the data, all the documentation that they needed about our newsletters, what we do, our website, and everything. And the good news is that they did reinstate our 501c4 status all the way back to 2005. So thank you for your support during this challenging year. And if anyone is interested in membership, please contact one of us. There's Bill Hines, myself, there's the secretary, and Patty Cloud. So we have 4 board members here. Please reach out to any of us, and we will make sure that we get you the current form for that. Okay. Now I know y'all are interested also in the Main Street project update, and it did go out to bid on October 25th. The county did send it out to bid, and then they had a pre-bid meeting here Wednesday morning, November 6th. So the secretary and I attended. As you may know, the Marshall Business and Residents Association was the original grant applicant for the first 2 grant applications when this started 10, 11 years ago. It was taken over by the county because laws changed so that civic groups could no longer act as the grant applicant. So the county has been moving on with it since then. We attended, and we learned, just in case y'all are not quite aware of all the details, it is to go from the parking lot of BB&T at the east side and to the IGA entrance at the west side. The days allotted for it are 240 with 30 days additional if needed. Now that does not count if they run into rock or if they run into other delays. The contractors are to work a 6-hour workday from 9 to 3. There is a limit to the number of inclement weather days that they can claim. Some of the questions that the contractors asked that day, for example, were, is there a line item for rock excavation? There was a man who had been involved in this 10, 12 years ago, and he said, with the work on Main Street, he said, we all know that there's rock all under there. So, is there a line item for rock excavation? The answer was no. The contractors also asked the county. Now the people answering the questions were Erin Kazanecki, and she is the head of the Office of Management and Budget, and Donnie Kazanecki is the county's construction manager. So they were answering the questions that the contractors brought up. They also asked, the contractors want to know, has the county designated a place for work trucks to park and a staging area? The answer was no, and that we all know that Main Street is a tight area. So they said, where are we supposed to park our work trucks and have our materials? And the answer was, your section of Main Street that you're responsible for working on is for that also. So Also, a question was, there were some very thoughtful questions. It was quite an educational experience going. Is there a provision, does the county have a provision for providing temporary utility service if it is interrupted to the businesses? And the answer was no. They don't anticipate any interruption. Aaron explained that all the utility lines are above ground and that the county anticipates no interruption in utility services to the businesses. The contractors wanted to know if they were going to be responsible for that. Now, the 240 plus 30 days downtime for the one block project does not include delays for if they run into rock. It doesn't, also, one of the contractors who has been around here and done work around here for a long time said it was very concerned that dealing with the rock along Main Street would damage the foundations of the historic buildings that are built up close to Main Street. So these are all concerns. This is what was spoken at the pre-bid hearing, and we wanted to pass that on to you guys.
Do you have somebody that we can, sorry to interrupt, do you have someone we can contact about that? Because I have a close friend, no longer lives in Virginia, but he used to have a rock salt business, and they used him all over the country where they didn't want to blast. And I know somebody else took the business over. So it's available, but I don't know who to talk to about it.
I would talk to Aaron Kazanecki with the county.
I can get you the information.
Okay.
I'll get it for Bertha.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also, I understand there's a company out of West Virginia, it puts at least what I understand from people who use this company. They have to go out to West Virginia from Fairfax to get this kind of work done. It's not blasting either, but it's at least 3 times the cost.
Yeah, this is competitive.
So I think the concern is not just with blasting, but with the kind of disruption that would occur having to go through all that rock to do this project. Would those building foundations, still be stable? As you may know, with the MBRA poured over this a lot. We met with Mary Lee a lot and Aaron Kazanecki a lot last year. We talked to them frequently. We exchanged many emails, and one of the concerns that was expressed was putting trees in there, where you have to dig down 5 feet to put trees in there. If we have rock, that's going to be a problem. So all of these things, now the cost, the $6 million project is based on the best case scenario. That $6 million project, they estimate, will result in a 400% tax rate increase in the special tax, the lighting tax district, for those in that district in Marshall. So what happens if it goes over that? If it doubles, if it goes up 50%, is that passed on to the taxpayers, is the question.
Just a quick question, and
Sure.
what's the benefit to the town of that?
Well, in the beginning, when this started, people wanted to, as I understand it, and as I read through the materials, people wanted to beautify Main Street and bring businesses from the city, from DC, to come. They said there was nothing here, it needs to be revitalized. Now, many people have noticed that that has been happening regardless. That's already been happening. We have new businesses that are drawing a lot of those people out. So, but that was the original plan. So now we also have, on our website, we have links to the county information, and we have links to shapingmarshalltogether.com. Why we do that is because our board was divided on this project. We were the original grant applicant. We studied it when it came out and had to go to bid, absolutely had to go to bid by November 20th of last year, or the grant funds could be lost. So we studied it intensively last year. Our board, however, in September took a vote, last September, 2018. And our majority opinion was against the project. Now, we had a divided opinion, so we wanted to represent both. So we have the county information links on our website, and we have shapingmarshalltogether.com as an alternative plan to improve Main Street without narrowing it, without the disruption to the businesses. Because the question is, when Marshall's down to one lane and there's work going on, how are those businesses gonna get their deliveries? How are they not going to suffer ill effects?
It's gonna be open both ways, it's not gonna be down to one lane.
Well, at the pre-bid meeting, they said they would work, they'd have one lane open at a time, is what we understood.
The problem is why they have to park all there.
So is this definitely happening? It's a done deal?
I am told it is not a done deal. It is in no way, no shape or form a done deal. It has to pass hurdles. It has to come before the Board of Supervisors, and they'll probably schedule it around Christmas time. So it also has to pass, they said at the VDOT building, meeting, it also has to pass VDOT standards. It also depends on how these bids come in. If they come in too expensive and they can't do it, although the county did make a provision that certain additional costs do not have to be counted in to the actual cost of the job. So that, in other words, the contractors can say, well, I have extra with this thing that's come up. I forget exactly what the wording is, our secretary would know. Do you remember that exactly?
For what?
When they said they can allow certain things.
It would be a contingency item in the budget where it would be an if this then that, but it wouldn't add to the total cost of the bid. So for example, if excavating rock were to be, $3 million or whatever the cost could be, it wouldn't be going to the actual total cost of the bid. And so if bids come in, they're too expensive, project might not happen, but the bids are not going to factor in, for example, rock excavation costs.
So the ultimate cost of the job could be a lot higher than what comes in as the bid, and you don't have to count that as part of the bid. So if you don't want it, I would say now is the time to get involved, because this is now has to go before the Board of Supervisors.
So one other question is, since it's gonna be basically one lane and the workers are gonna be parking their trucks on the street, where are the people gonna park that wanna go to those businesses? I mean, you're looking at a 10-month project roughly, if they're not gonna be able to park to go into these businesses. How many of those businesses will survive?
That's been the
Probably.
concern, yes.
None probably.
Right, and as you see in other areas, Middleburg, Vienna, these various areas, the estimated project time for something like this is usually, way much more than the 240, 270 days. It just usually goes way past, especially when we know that there's rock there, and we know that's gonna be something that has to be dealt with.
Is there a list of the people we contact, the Board of Supervisors, and that name and all that we can get somewhere?
We will, we'll put
It's on the
that up.
website,
Is it on our website?
under the Main Street tab.
Okay, if you go to our website, Marshall, Virginia, spell out Virginia, not the other one, Marshall, Virginia, spelled out .org, and you go to the Main Street tab, it should be there. And just contact us if you see anything missing, or you see something that would be helpful for us to include in there, either whether it's pro sidewalk, pro this project, or pro the alternative project, or anything in between, just let us know, because we want to be a voice for the people, and a lot of people feel that their voices have not been heard. And so we want to make sure that all opinions are out there, and that this is your community. The question is really throughout the country, it seems to be a recurring question. Who determines what happens with a community? Is it the people who have to pay the taxes, the people who live here, the businesses who live here and pay the taxes? Or is it real estate developer and investor interest? And it happens all across the communities, all across the country face the same issue. What we would like to do, all of these interests are important. All of these concerns are important. We would like to see the oftentimes not heard citizens and small businesses also have their input considered. But whatever your opinion is, if you see something that you think is missing on our website that would be helpful, just let us know, because we want to get the word out to everyone so they can make an informed decision. And so now, without further ado, I will introduce the group president of Van Meter Land Acquisition and Planning, Roy Barnett. We're very pleased that he's able to come tonight, and he's going to give us an update on the Van Meter developments.
Thank you much. Appreciate that, Mary. Well, it's been 7 years now, I think I've been hanging around Marshall. Seen some of you many times, and some of them are new faces. But we've been working hard, and I think, I said this to somebody earlier in the evening, one of the things that I talked about back 7 years ago, which is still our mantra today, our message today, is that there's a couple things with Van Meter. One is that what we say or what we tell you we're going to do, we are going to do. And we say what we do and we do what we say. And we're pretty well known for that, and I've been congratulated many times, whether it's on a positive or negative, but in the jurisdictions that I work with in the Washington metro area, mainly in this area. And as many of you know, Marshall's very sensitive to the company, especially when Bo Van Meter, who's the son of Al Van Meter, the founder of the company, lives on the Mettern Farm estate that Mr. Van Meter Sr. purchased many, many years ago from the Mars family. And if you've been by there, you will see that Mrs. Van Meter, because Mrs. Van Meter lived there until she passed away about a year ago, that the old house, the Mars house, was where she lived. If you go by there lately, you will see that it's been totally renovated, the whole area there. And that's because Bo Van Meter, the son, has, had his house in one of the back pastures, is going to move into the main house and has totally restored the main house. And Bo feels that he's very active in what we do here in Marshall, and very much wants to know a lot of the detail, because he does live right up the street. He visits Marshall very, very often. And indeed, his wife, I think, shops in a lot of the stores and eats, and they all eat in the same restaurants as you all do here. So with that, we have been working on Marshall. We are still working on Marshall. Most of you know the projects or the lands that we have, but just as a reminder, and I apologize, with me is Tom Marable. Tom's a long-term Marshall resident, and Tom's with me as well tonight. And basically, oh, it's upside down. I look at these plans any different direction, and spend part of my time on the other side of the world upside down, because it's in the southern hemisphere and halfway around. I've been commuting back and forth to Australia for the last year. My wife's actually getting her master's degree over there at one of the universities in Australia. So with Main Street that you were talking about, Rectortown Road, corner of Main and Main, I call it here, and Main Street coming down, and the old IGA in this general area. We have the Cunningham Farm on the north, Cunningham Farm is about 160 lots plus or minus. Don't quote me, Leland, exactly. I'm giving you round numbers. And then we purchased next to the Raritan Club, the old swim club property, Lone Oak Swim Club. And we have another 40, 45 units there. So we have approximately 200 units with Lone Oak and the Cunningham Farm in this area. And remember, the Cunningham Farm was about 130, 140 acres. And between what was given Middleburg Humane, Windy Hill Foundation, what we're working with VDOT, and I'll come back and talk about VDOT in a minute with the new commuter parking lot and some of the others. So we end up with about 100 acres developable. And of course, it's zoned R2, the Cunningham Farm piece, what's in yellow. So at 2 units per acre, could have had 200 units. We're only really at 150, 160 units there, about 160 units. So we're really less than the max density that would have been allowed on that. Lone Oak was part of the zoning, the Marshall zoning it went through a couple years ago or a year ago. I think it was finally approved. So that part is still within the zoning ordinance there. So we're developing within the current zoning. On the south side, we have what started out as Carter's Crossing. Then when Doug Darling got involved, it was Cannon Ridge. And then I said, well, Cannon Ridge doesn't really sound good, so I took it back to Carter's Crossing. And of course, when it comes onto the market, our sales and marketing people will have some other fancy name for it. But for all our projects, it's called Carter's Crossing from all our plans. And Carter's Crossing down here, if you remember, that's where we took Doug's plan of 200 units and reduced it down. And then I added land to it, so we're about 190 units in the south side, 195 in there. Because we also have the Blevins property that we bought on Frost Street, which was 21, 22 lots. So with that, generally I talk about we have 200 units on the south and 200 units on the north in general terms. So that's what we've been working on, and as you all know, I started with Doug's piece and I've been adding to it. But the big elephant in the room has always been, well, what about water? That's always been the elephant in the room. And if you remember back when I came here before or talked to some of you offline, I always said that we wouldn't start development until we solved the water issue. And I think I've kept my word on that. We haven't started development because we're still solving the water issue. And to tell you how much that is, I think we're about $600,000 of money that we've spent looking at water exploration, water details. I think we can tell you between our consultants and Tom and I, we can tell you about everything you want to know about the aquifers and the hydrology and everything around Marshall itself. We can tell you what's good, what's bad. We can tell you what wells we think are good wells, what bad wells. But we have spent a lot of money out there. We haven't built the first house yet. $600,000 in water exploration. We are working on Carter's. We're going through the plan approval process. Carter's being this, what I call south of Maine. We hope to have those plans through the engineering review process by the end of the year. So we could start in January. But that's still dependent on whether I resolve the water. Because we don't have 200 units in Marshall, we have 400 units and we have 500 existing households. What none of us want is to have a water issue in Marshall. So we want to make sure that what we have from a water supply standpoint, a production standpoint, is sufficient to not only serve our existing development, but has additional capacity to help supply the rest of the town in the case that your existing supplies have some other issue with them. So we've been really working with Fauquier County Water and Sanitation Authority, with their leadership over there. Public knows that we have 2 wells on the Cunningham property. The Cunningham properties on the north, we have 2 wells that are located there that are production wells that will meet about half of the needs of the project. But that doesn't help me. That doesn't keep my word. Doesn't help me that we have water for the whole 400, our projects, plus the extra capacity that WSA can use for the town itself. So we are continuing that exploration work. Our consultants are working on some reports. I can't even tell you what those reports say right now. We've done some more explorations. We hope to have those reports and have those in a form that what's called a hydrogeologic report. They analyze an area, they've done some production testing, they've done the water quality testing, they'll put together their analysis, and that gets submitted both to Fauquier County and to WSA. And we hope to have that sometime before the end of the year on the rest. So depending on how those reports come out, plus the report that we've already processed that says we have what's equivalent to about 200 units of water, 200 housing units, or EMUs as WSA will refer to them as, EMUs. We will see where we stand at the end of the year. We think we have our fingers crossed, but we are committed. We are working with WSA, and we are committed, and I will bring with me tonight the message from the Van Meter family that they're committed to make sure that we have taken that elephant out of the room, put them in a cage somewhere and got rid of them. Because I'm tired of talking about water issues in Marshall. So we are working on that. So that's what I can tell you on water. Can't tell you anything more. There's a lot of rumors floating around. There's a lot of people conjecture. But if Tom and I don't know about it, I don't know how anybody else knows about it. So we're working on that. I just, it's not that I'm saying what we've spent to date or what we're doing to just say, Van Meter has deep pockets, because that's not where it is. I just want you to know that we're committed with our projects here in Marshall. I've heard a rumor 6 months ago, someone said, well, Roy's pulling out of Marshall. I'm not leaving Marshall. I have half of my career, I feel like, spent here, working on things and trying to solve infrastructure problems. And with a town that's as old as Marshall and the historic values that are in Marshall, and you just talked about that with Main Street, your infrastructure is aging. Your water lines, you've got some 2-inch water lines that are half corroded by now and water's trickling, so we know, a lot of work's been done to identify the whole water system in Marshall and what areas could be improved efficiently and quickly to greatly improve the overall water delivery system for all the residents in Marshall. So we've identified some of those. We've done our modeling and testing on that. But we also know that the sewer system, there's a pump station that's down by Windy Hill at the end of Salem Avenue, that's being held together by chewing gum and rubber bands right now. It's a very old pump station down there. And so we are working with WSA to alleviate the expenditure that they would have to do to just roll it into some of the things that we're doing to build a new pump station for that area. Because whether you know or not, several of the businesses on Main Street drain to that pump station. So it's not, everybody thinks it's only a couple of houses, but there's a lot of the people that are from the IGA going west, that their businesses drain to sewer lines that run down to that pump station that is not in the best of condition. So we are working with WSA we actually done an engineering study to know what the new pump station needs to be, the capacity and the sizing and the types of force mains, the routing of that force main. So, and luckily it crosses, the new force main needs to cross Main Street, because today that pump station pumps up here to behind the firehouse. And then that sewer line goes all the way around town on the east side to then get back down to the sewer treatment plant under 66. So we're taking a more direct route, taking it across right at Manor Drive, taking it over through our Carter's Crossing project and getting it into the sewer system there to make that a quicker run and open up some capacity on the rest of town. So that there's not that overload from that pump station going into the system on the east side. So we hope to have that in design by the end of the year. Still haven't started building a house yet. So we've designed a water system, working on a pump station relocation, force main realignment, and then Salem Avenue extended. I've got to ask about that, because you're going to have a lot of work on Main Street. We were hoping that Salem Avenue would get done before Main Street started, so it would help you a little bit on traffic, but as many of you hopefully know, that Salem Avenue will be extended from Windy Hill west to where the existing farm entrance is, to the Cunningham property. And then there's an intersection, and then it goes into Main Street or Grove Lane. They changed names right there at the intersection. So it aligns with Free State. So somebody can come in Free State, come across Main Street, Grove Lane, come in about 500 feet, turn right on Salem Avenue, come right up Salem Avenue, and it'll give a way to alleviate all the traffic, east-west traffic having to go on Main Street. Gives you an extra outlet. That adds from fire and rescue standpoint, that gives you safety, because now you have two routes for any vehicle, because there will be a back entrance off the rescue station to Salem, so that if there's some issue on Main Street, you always have Salem open so that your fire and rescue can circulate without too much problem. So that's a VDOT project that we're working with the county and VDOT. It's called what's called a revenue share. And so VDOT pays half the cost and the county pays the other half, but the county's not funding it. That's funded by Van Meter. So we're funding the other half of that cost. And we've already funded to date $200,000 for the design. That's our half of the design of that road. And VDOT's paid the other half. That project will cost somewhere around $2 million construction cost, of which we'll be putting up $1 million of the $2 million. And we're hoping the right-of-way drawings were recorded last week, and there's like a couple dot the i's before it can go to VDOT to get final approval to go to bid. And we hope that'll go to bid by the end of the year. And it's a bid process and then construction in the spring. So that'll be hopefully be under construction by March timeframe. That would be my wish. Yes, sir.
Did you say it goes all the way from the entry where Free State Road butts in, all the way past the, I guess, the rescue squad, fire station?
Yes.
So it comes all the way out to Rectortown Road?
You have Salem Avenue today that runs from Rectortown. Where am I at? Right here, over here, Rectortown, at the old fairground, the old firehouse fairgrounds
Right.
here. It goes down to the end of Windy Hill today. We're at Windy Hill Townhouse. That's being extended from, let me turn it this way, it's extended from Windy Hill west to where the farm road goes into Cunningham.
Right.
And then it follows the farm road back out to Main Street, which is in line with Free State.
Right. My question more is on the Rectortown side, That's not being.
That's not being touched.
Not being touched, not
No.
increased, so you're still gonna have sort of the narrow.
You have the narrow thing, but we want that to, because you don't want this to become a cut-through road, if you will. You don't wanna encourage fast traffic.
Right.
And the way you don't encourage fast traffic is you make the road smaller, you park cars next to it. It's
We'll
what,
have a nice look at the end.
and it's like the traffic engineers say, it's side friction. Create that reason for cars to have to slow down.
Thank you. Forced calming.
Yes, yeah, and then eventually, not part of the road project, so, but eventually, here at Free State and Cunningham Farm Drive, there will be a roundabout, which will further slow down things there and make things a little more safer at that intersection. So that comes in with the work, when this project here goes forward, that roundabout is part of our commitment on building Cunningham Farm. So the other part of that is, at the same time we're doing this road work for Salem Avenue Extended, tying back to Main Street there, we're going to be building the new commuter parking lot. So the commuter parking lot that's now over here in the back, years ago we had some legislation done, allowed to do a land exchange between VDOT and private landowner to move this commuter parking lot out here closer to 66 and where the traffic should be. That will do two things. That will encourage bus implementation of buses, because now the buses can travel 66, come in, loop through there, go right back out without going through the main part of town. So, and hopefully by being out here where it's more visible, that'll get more use. Because in any given day, I go back to the commuter parking lot and I might find 2 or 3 cars, and they may have been sitting there for a couple days, and I don't know. So this is ready to go. We have the plans approved. That's our project, Van Meter's project. And we're going to build the new commuter parking lot at the same time they're building Salem Avenue. We're actually going to bid them at the same time, so hopefully we can get some synergy in pricing and get the same contractor to do both. And then once that opens, then we'll get the ownership of VDOT. Yes, sir.
Question, what about the south side program? Because I think you can probably fairly say that for every unit, you're gonna have 2 cars. So there's 400 cars on the west side and north side, and 400 on the
Yes.
south side. Where are those 400 cars gonna get in and out access?
And mainly on Cunningham, that's why the roundabout here,
Yes, but then I'm talking about your portion of it. Yes.
the Carter's piece.
Yes.
We have 3 outlets today. We have a new road that comes in next to the diner, right across from from the rescue squad. There's a new road, which is right, I'm sorry.
You're on it.
Yeah, it's right here. We have Manor Drive, and we have a connection to Frost Street. And eventually, when Thompson develops, we have a road that ties into this piece that would bring you back out to Rectortown. So we've had our traffic engineers look at this. We've actually, when I took this project over, I reduced the number of units that were going to be built on this project. Because just on Darling's piece, he had about 200 units. Then we had Blevins, which is 22 units, so that was 220. And then we had the Manor property over here, which was another 30-some units. So originally there were going to be over 250 units there.
With 1 point access.
Yeah, with limited access. So we brought it back, reduced the density. And some people look at me and say, "You're a developer," and I said, "Yes, but there's a limit to what you can build." So we reduced the density and we increased our access points. Because originally with the Darling piece, he didn't have Manor Drive as an entrance because he didn't control it. We actually bought the old Manor facility after we purchased Darling's piece.
You've almost doubled the open space.
Yeah, so we're meeting our open space to that. So anyways, I think what we've done, when you look at where we are, we're over 500, we're 600,000 on the water, a couple 100,000 on Salem. We're redoing a couple hundred today, another million, so that's $1.2 million plus 6 is $1.8 million. We're doing the commuter parking lot, and we still haven't built the first house. We're doing that all, and we're still working, and we're designing pump station right now. Getting ready to design sewer pump station. Yes.
Will you throw in some roundabouts over on 17, just since you're doing it?
66 and 17.
66 and 17. Now you're into the Federal Highway Administration, so I can't go there.
If anybody can do it.
Can't go there. So we are working forward. Everybody says, when are you going to get started? We hope to get started in January, but it's really going to depend on where we are with this hydro studies that come out from our consultants in the next month. So I can't tell you, and I don't want see in the paper that we're going to start development in January or March, because we don't have a start date until we meet the parameters, and we have these indicators that we want, performance indicators that we say we would meet, and we're working on meeting those. I have about a bunch of hands. I'll start back there.
Just wondering if your traffic impact study addressed the one stoplight at the 7-Eleven, which already we have a little rush hour at now.
Yes, they did look at that. They did look at traffic splits and what we call traffic splits, different directions, because what you find is people driving cars, because it's not cars, it's the people driving cars. It's like water, it's like water. It'll take the path of least resistance to flow. So when the traffic engineers look at this, they run it through some computerized models, but it's really dealing that if this delay gets a little bit more than another delay, then the traffic starts splitting off, because that's what human nature is. Human nature is the path of least resistance.
So you don't feel that this is going to impact the traffic light there, with everybody wanting to hit the grocery store on their way home before they hit their new Van Meter house on the other end of town?
We don't see that, because my experience has been that my grocery store business is, because I also work on the commercial side, my grocery store business is not, my peak hours in my grocery store are not the peak hours for my commuter traffic coming in and out. We don't see the two coinciding. We actually see, and we have a grocery store right next to I have a Lidl that we put in right next to our office building in Broadlands, and we see different peak hours there than what we see on the commuter traffic. We see a lot more people, believe it or not, we see a lot more people in the daytime there, and we're there. I mean, Tom's office looks out over the parking lot. We see a lot more people there in the daytime than I ever thought we'd see in the daytime. And then we'll see them in later evening, but we don't really see that somebody's stopping from work.
Let's get started. Drive safely.
Uh-oh.
Are you at liberty to talk about Carter's Crossing or display some of that? And is that, a sidebar to that, living down Crest Hill Road, I noticed an awful lot of well activity. Is there any possibility that that would be a contributing water source for developments on that side of Marshall?
We purchased Crest Hill separate and aside. That was a separate purchase. That's outside the suburban policy area. That's a well and septic community. So that's my density there is about 8 lots, and we drilled some wells in there for those lots.
Just for those, they're not going to be a contributing water source for.
We're testing them.
Yeah, cool.
I don't have any idea of where we're at right now. Somebody else had their hand up?
People have been sending me questions. So this is one question. They couldn't be here tonight, but the concern is the number of houses that are planned to be built on small lots, and the amount of traffic that will be generated from that many houses. Main Street and our roads just can't handle it. They'd much rather see larger houses on larger lots with fewer number of cars.
Okay. So and I wish former Supervisor Schwartz was here. Because if you looked at the Cannon Ridge plan, when I first inherited that project, because remember, that was a banking situation. When we purchased Cannon Ridge, that was actually purchased a bank note. And it went into default. So that's how I ended up with Cannon Ridge. You know, it was just one of those things. It was approved, and I'm going back to this and I'm dwelling on this a little bit. It was approved for over 200 units with very tiny lots. And it took me 2 years to go back through the rezoning process, because that was a rezoned proffered plan, which means that you have to follow the plan unless you get a revision approved through Planning Commission and the board. So it took me over 2 years in working with, it was Supervisor Schwartz at the time, of course Mr. Lee at Planning Commission, to look at that plan, because the vision, and you've seen this in the Marshall zoning plan that was done a year ago, the vision for Marshall is these smaller lots, you know, to make it part of a town, to have the new lots, make them fit in and work with the the current lots, so that it's an extension of town. It's what's called neo-traditional land planning or new urbanism. You have examples at Kentlands over in Maryland's the one everybody points to, that has the smaller lots and the detached garages or garages to the rear and that. So we actually, it took us 2 years to go back through the process, work with planning staff, supervisor, planning commissioner, to make the lots a little bigger and reduce the number of lots and reduce the number of townhomes. So I think in that whole all of that, I only have 38 townhomes, I believe, something like that, 21 and 17, 38, 48 townhomes, something like that. So a very limited number of townhomes. They're single family detached lots, different sizes, but in Carter's and Cunningham, all the garages are not to be prominent, so they're all pushed back. They're not sticking out in front, they're pushed back or in the rear. And we have some alley lots over there. And so they were designed that way to create the extension of town, but I reduced the number of lots from what it was approved when we first started.
That's one thing that I don't think people are aware of, the small lot size, et cetera. So is that something that at this point wouldn't be changed?
That one would not, because that's a proffered plan and we're required to follow that proffered plan.
Okay.
And it was a long process to get the revision approved.
Got it.
The houses in that start small, and then there's 4 different types of product in Carter's Crossing. And as it goes, the lots get a little bit larger.
We do graduate because we have the 4 housing types, but what I can just tell you, just from a market overall, we're seeing a demand for houses, but not big lots. The buyers that we're seeing today are looking at, they want the house, but with the, I won't date myself, but with the buyer profiles today, they want more time to go do their other activities. And they don't want to be wed to mowing grass and taking care of a big yard and a garden and all those types of things. Their garden is the window box, and a little bit of grass is fine for walking the dog, but hopefully the neighbor has grass so they don't have to worry about it.
Between this development, both areas here, and Carter's Crossing, can you give me an idea of what the target dollar figure for the houses is, low to high?
I can just tell you, if we were selling that product today, that the single family homes, we would be starting in the 400s because of some of the smaller houses we have. And we would see, if you go look at our Meadowbrook product that's outside of Leesburg, we're up to in the 900 to 1 million on our bigger lots there.
That's
And when I
right.
say our bigger lots there, the bigger lots there are the same size lots that we would have at Cunningham.
What's the square footage on the typical house in this? I guess this is all online. Maybe I should go to the website.
I don't know how much, is it online?
Should be online.
It's on the website. I'll do the research. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We haven't put any architecture online yet, because it has to be approved by the county before we can actually build it as part of the proffer.
Right.
But, it is on the, you can look at the lot sizes
Sure.
that are on there, and it'll give you an idea.
400 to 900,000 range.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like a big range, but we have different product types that slice through there. And
Townhouses
that-
will be in the threes.
Yeah, the towns would probably be in the 3s today. But they're growing, growing in price. Everything's, you're basically the Washington metropolitan area, what's the biggest thing you have today is there's a demand for.
Oh, sure. I just hadn't heard anybody be able to respond or mention or comment in conversation that the idea was what kind of, whether they were $300,000 houses that were planned or 900,000. And so that helps me a lot. It gives me a good.
We're looking at a range of
Yeah.
housing types and styles and pricing, diversity of housing to meet all the different demographic, economic points that you have.
Cool.
So approximately what size portion of an acre is the smallest single-family home to the largest?
I don't quote anything in acres anymore. You have, because no one really works on acres anymore. Some of our worst selling jobs are 3-acre lots. We have 3-acre lots that we almost, literally had to price it below what we bought them at to sell the lots and houses.
So what is the square footage, lot
The
square footage?
lots, the smallest lots in there are what's called a courtyard series. They're similar to what I built in Kentlands, which is a 40-foot lot, 40-foot wide, and it's about 80 to 100 foot deep. So it's 4,000 square feet, 3,500, 4,000 square foot lot.
10th of an acre.
Yeah, 1/10 of an acre if you want to get down. But I can tell you the courtyard houses, what makes me ill is I built 25 years ago. I built Kentlands, I built in Kentlands, I built both the courtyards or the cottages they called them, and I built quality custom homes. So my cottage homes, I sold average about $200,000 in 1994. Those houses are reselling today in the 550s. Same house, same lot. Those houses were 24-foot wide. I actually have some houses that I built in Kentlands that were 19 feet wide. They were very narrow, 45-foot deep.
Shotgun.
They are shotgun. They're stacked. You just walk down, living room, dining room, kitchen, family room in the back, and then you stack up on the bedrooms on the upper floors. Those are actually selling higher. They're in the higher 5s right now in Kentlands. And Kentlands is still Gaithersburg. It's still not in Rockville, Silver Spring. It's in Gaithersburg, so it's out a little bit. And it's not next to Metro. It's out. If anybody remembers the day, it was out where the old National Geographic building was years ago. So yes.
So when do we get to the fun part, which for us would be when you show us the plans of
Yes.
what they'll look like, and for you actually get to receive money back, which will be very exciting. I'm assuming it's when you guys are approved and everything goes forward. But if everything goes well at the end of the year, does that mean in January we'll start seeing your website grow and different plans and options and
We
reselling?
would hope that if everything went well, then it would be in the first part of next year that you would see that. And as Tom said, we can't put anything on our website because we have covenants and restrictions that say that every part of the architecture has to be approved by the county. And we have a third-party architect that's engaged by the county to review our plans. So we don't want to put something up and have something misleading. And I know our signs have said, we've had hopes coming 2018.
It's like a ball, it's like a baseball diamond,
Yeah, coming in 2019, and so.
I can say that we we have very serious outlookers, you know, we have a list of people that have contacted us, and from young demographic to also aging demographic, and that buyer's the same buyer. They're looking for a smaller move down, they don't want all the yard stuff, so our list is considerably growing, and we'll do what we call a release meeting internally to our sales team, you know, by the first of the year. So our architecture is some of it's in a process now. Our site plans that have been submitted has footprints on it that we're wed to. They will not change. And then some of the architecture has been included in those site plans already. And then the details in the site plans are what's in the process.
Right.
And
But I think to answer your question, I think, you know, it depends on you all. We would probably, you know, could come back sometime in the spring, early spring, if, depending on timing, and we would have maybe somebody from our marketing side of the house be able to come in and explain and talk about some of the housing product.
Currently, we're planning to be open for sale with a model by end of 2020.
Yeah. So, but we would want to come out and spend another time if you all would have us and just talk about that.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of interest from locals who are interested in buying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Some of those calls may come directly to me rather than the website.
Yes, sir.
Did I understand, I may have misunderstood you when you said you had prearranged, not sales, but do you have a customer list of people who are?
Yeah, you can go to the website and you can put your name and email in there, and people have emailed and contacted back and forth with our online sales representative, and they talk about, you know, timing and whatever the layout is.
But they can't you can't write a contract, they don't have pricing, you're basically.
They don't have any priority or anything like that.
Yeah. It's just that they're there, so if you're on that website,
You're just notified.
you're notified when things are gonna open,
Right.
when sales are opening, so by that, you're getting notice before it may be in the paper, or may see it somewhere else.
I do have another question, and that was about, is there any thought being put or requirements being made by the county or anyone for noise abatement on some of those lots over on, well, both lots, or both areas, pick up a lot of noise from 66. Are you required to do anything?
The Carter's Crossing proffers require us to build a berm, and we have an extensive landscaping that goes along 66 down, because right here is Interstate 66. And your low point 66 is right here. That's where the stream crossing is, and the sewer treatment plant's right here. So in this area here, there's a berm that's required, and plantings on top of that berm, both for beautification and some noise, but mainly it's the berm. The trees themselves don't give you much noise abatement, it's the berm.
And I'm assuming they're doing some light pollution too. You guys are, I'm sure, being thoughtful about that.
It's all down lighting. Anywhere we work today, we've got, you know, restricted on down. It has to be down, and you can't have the bulbs that spray up into the sky.
And I've heard that you've taken special attention, because it's Marshall, to make sure they really fit well here in town.
We have done that. We have a grid street system to tie into the town streets, and our light pole standards, and some of those have been the same ones. So we've been very diligent on making sure that we fit into the styling. Because we are here, and we have a couple things that'll come up, is we have, you know, the architectural control, you know, you have the environmental controls, and we didn't talk much about the environment side, or I didn't, but one of the things is that somebody will say, well, why did you just redesign Cunningham Farm? Because if you've seen it, we've redesigned it. But the reason is, and you can see it on this aerial, and you're welcome up later and I can show you, there's in the wooded area right in here, all forested area, that originally this was lots, other than just the stream. But that's a wetlands area and a heavily treed area. And then there's a stream in here, there's a wetlands area in here that comes down through this finger, and there's some wetlands over in here. So originally, this was envisioned as being one big open space that somebody could put a ball field or something in, but that would have inundated all the environmental features that were there. And so what we've done is take special care to have the least amount of impact on wetlands and existing environmental features, and protect the tree lines in here, because those tree lines flow into the adjoining tree lines. So all of this in here was redesigned. And so what we did was said these areas here where it would be very difficult to put in a large set of fields, because you would have been, basically, you wouldn't have been able to do it because you wouldn't have got permits to do all the wetland impacts. We've now created a linear area back in here that's doesn't have any wetlands, doesn't have any trees, it's not environmentally impacted, and provides a much better space for those larger play areas or field areas. And what we've been able to do is work with the environmental features here. So the lots that I did have back here, we put some in here and in here, but we still saved all the features, the wetlands. And it's been a real process with the Department of Environmental Quality from Virginia and the Corps of Engineers, who administers wetlands for the federal government, is making sure that we have, and they gave us a mandate that we could not have more than a certain amount of wetlands impact on the entire project. And that only covers where we have to cross for a road. So in anything else, other than a road crossing, that's all the only impact that we have, which is where we have to cross the stream for a road.
Do you foresee any kerfuffles with city folk moving out here and being offended at nature taking its course at Middleburg Humane Society?
No. In fact, I don't know, I grew up on a farm, and I said, when I moved off the farm, I said, I'm done with animals. I've done my time. I don't want to get up at 5 o'clock and milk cows anymore, and I don't want to have to feed animals. But I don't know, in the millennial world, I don't know how many of them don't have some sort of animal. And I mean, we now have bring your dog to work. So, I walk in the office and we've got 2 horses. I call them horses. They're big dogs that are walking around. So I see that what you have today is that they feel like they have to have that connection with the animal life and the nature.
More of a symbiotic feature than an intrusion.
Than it was 20 years ago.
Okay, let me just ask, is there anyone who hasn't asked a question yet, who would like to ask a question of Roy?
Time-wise.
Anyone who wants to ask anything?
Can I ask one more question? I already asked one. When it gets back to the water issue, I know you're trying to solve it and get to the point where you have enough water to take care of your project plus the town. If the studies come back and that is reduced and say, by whatever percentage, do you see yourselves continuing in the plan at a backed off scale, or what do you see happening if you don't get your full water allotment that you feel you need to?
You'll see me drill more wells.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
So
tell you. Can't tell you how many I've drilled, but I'm 15 wells now.
So you think, you feel confident that you will find enough water eventually?
There is. There's the aquifers are down there, and we know, we've had our setbacks. We know we have one area that, based on all the data that we have and the imaging that's been done, our electronic imaging and all the geophysical work that we've done, that we know that there was a great supply of water. We just couldn't get access to that property. After we know where the best wells could be, we know that they're probably high production wells, we couldn't get access to that property. So we know that there's water in the aquifer, and we know which aquifer we want to be in. We know there's bad aquifers and there's good aquifers. And we know where we have to be, and we know it's just a matter of finding that crevice in the rock formations to get you into that aquifer to allow you to get the water out of the aquifer. And it's just going to take time. I mean, you have properties around town, or right outside of Marshall, that have artesian wells. So we know there's water, or otherwise you wouldn't be able to get the water up. So we will just keep drilling, and we'll keep doing our studies until we meet our criteria.
Not just quantity as well as quality.
It's water
That's
quality.
what we're after.
One question, I know you already mentioned this, that the wells that you're drilling on Prescott Road, I'm
Yeah.
also on Prescott Road, really close to
Yeah,
to where you are. Can you tell us here today that those wells that you're drilling over there are just for those 8 lots, I believe you said?
I can't tell you that because I don't know what
this other
the,
project?
I can't tell you that because I don't know what the testing is.
Thank you.
I can't tell you that. I can tell you that from a hydro or watershed protection area, that watershed there is some of the best watershed protection there is in the area.
Thank you, that answered my question.
Yeah.
Is there someone I can contact in the water thing as this progresses? I live off Rectortown Road, and I bought my property, I'm on my 3rd well,
Uh-huh.
and I'm just on the other side of the railroad tracks, and my concern is that your wells, I've got the underground water, I'm not
Right.
articulate in this, but my concern is that your big wells are going to pull water from my property. I mean, I have no water, which I guess is other, so I know you don't know that today, but do you have people I can talk to
We can,
ask
if
questions?
you look, we can actually meet with you and go over the hydro study. Because the hydro study that was done on the Cunningham Farm wells, we're required, when we do the hydro study, to monitor wells within a certain range. So while they're pumping, they do these extensive tests. And they'll go out there and they'll pump these wells for a week almost continuously, just to look at how much drawdown effects you have on any other wells. Because they want to make sure, and the county wants to make sure, that we're not impacting other wells. So the drawdown effects is what it's called. It's, you'll measure, while you're pumping this well over here and we're dropping the water level 30 or 40 feet over here, what's the effect over here? And they do that monitoring simultaneously over, it's about a week time period. And so those are measured. So if it's impacting other wells, then they restrict how much water you can have over here so that you're not impacting wells over here. So they do that hydro testing and studies anytime that we get into these multiple wells. So I can tell you that, just off the top of my head, that anything we did at the Cunningham wells, that aquifer is nowhere close, because I've done the wells over here on Rectortown, I've done a couple. Those wells are not anywhere connected to the same aquifer that we have over here, because there's different levels.
How about the wells you're using on the other side of Rectortown Road for my development that are in, what do they call it, like Salem? Bill Backer's place.
Yeah.
You're using wells there.
Actually, that well's been shut down back there behind you, over on the other side of the railroad tracks. They're not using that well currently today. They are working on another well at Backer,
Right.
but it's not up and running yet. But the other well you're talking about, I think there's really only 1 or 2 wells in town, which are more centered around the center of town right now, that they're pumping from.
Yeah.
So,
And what's going on with Backer or anything over on that side, on the east side of Rectortown, has nothing to do with me, and we can't use any of that water. Anything that's over there, we can't use.
Just to follow up on my question, you make a point right now, who can in contact about this kind of studies that just say that when you all run a well, and I see that some of those wells on Rescue Road, they were running 24/7.
Right.
And we're pretty close there,
Yeah.
and nobody come over to us we don't even get a letter, nobody come to us to say.
We
hey,
monitor.
there's a notification sent out to every homeowner that has a well within whatever the criteria distance that the state
That's what I'm saying.
with the state of Virginia Health
We're
Department
pretty close, and we
required.
never got that.
Right.
letter,
So
we
if you didn't get a letter, it means you were not in the near proximity to the wells. So what will happen is they'll monitor the wells that were in that near proximity. If those weren't impacted, then the projection is that nothing out further away is impacted.
So, but do you know who can we contact so we can make sure that
You
we're not supposed to be contacted?
We
Since we're pretty
will,
close to it?
yeah, it's a hydro study that's submitted to the county, so once it's submitted, then it'll be available for public review.
Thank you.
They have a wellhead protection program they're setting up, so
Yes.
if they do that, and the county's finalizing the details on that.
Right. All right.
So thank you.
Thank you much, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that, that was very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking all our questions.
Oh, yeah.